But why not seeing natural phenomena and physical laws and even human actions themselves as an expression of divine will? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So in chapter 3, section 3, the material relevance of the Islamic text. So once trust in the Messenger alayhi salam is established, I can honestly evaluate using scientific reasoning the message carried by these narrations. So as a modern scientist, I'm particularly interested in evaluating the coherence of the text, Quran and Hadith, to the contemporary scientific theories. This section therefore deals with the material relevance of Islam, only material relevance of Islam. So here I should specify, I agree that the Quran is not a scientific textbook. The Quran primarily describes human psychology, human ethics, human behavior, not how the world works. But within the text, within the Quran, you have verses that still describes natural phenomena, like the wind, the mountains, the sun, the moon, and others. So when it talks about this, I expect that description to coincide with what we know of the world from a scientific point of view. I accept the two, revelation and our scientific understanding, to match. That's an assumption, and it's an expectation. The source of this expectation for me is that, one, it works, I can make it match, but also the source of both is God. If it's the same God, I expect some consistency between the creations and revelation. So the goal is not to use religious texts, and the Quran in particular, as a source of scientific facts, no, but to appreciate the complementarity that exists between scientific and religious worldviews. He also referred to the Ijaz movement, who tries to see scientific miracles in the Quran. And I actually wrote a book in French, it's coming up in English, about miracles, where I redefine miracles. I start from that Ijaz movement shows that in its essence it doesn't make sense, because again, the Quran is not primarily a scientific textbook, but yes, you can read the text with modern scientific lenses. Then the question, okay, to continue with that Ijaz movement, for me, whether a verse fits better with a modern scientific understanding than a pre-modern scientific understanding, that's not science, that's a linguistic choice. But I agree that if I put my modern scientific lenses, I can read the text and I can still see relevance in it, even though it was written 1400 years ago. And that relevance I found miraculous, yes. So regarding the material descriptions found in religious texts, I divide them into 5 categories. The first are recurring events. So this category includes all the descriptions of common or known natural phenomena, as well as usual scenes of life, like the wind carrying the clouds, the water making the earth revive and make plants grow, and so on. Number 2, single events that took place prior to the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. So this category includes all the actions reported by the Prophet alayhi salam himself, which defy apparent laws of nature. This grouping basically includes all the miracles associated with past prophets. Like you believe in them because the Prophet ﷺ told you about it. That's it. Regardless what science has to say about it. So you just accept in condition. If you accept what the Prophet ﷺ says, if you accept that whatever he says is true, that the Quran is true, then you accept these miracles as well. So number 3, single events that happen during the life of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. So this category includes all of his own miracles as reported by the companions. So number 4, prophecies that happened, that were enacted. So this category includes all the prophecies made by the Prophet himself, alayhi salam, that did take place. Number 5, prophecies to come. This category includes all the prophecies made by the Prophet himself, alayhi salam, about upcoming events, like including the signs of the Day of Judgment, for example. So note here that I exclude here all the descriptions of the invisible items, world, like the jinns, angels, the Day of Judgment, paradise, the throne, the pen, since they are not materially verifiable. Like science has nothing to say about it, so I'm not discussing it. And for the purpose of this section, I define miracles as being any event that defies the apparent laws of nature and or common logic. So after discussing a theistic vision of the physical world, I focus in the second part on the element of category 1, which are like common usual events that the Quran describes, talks about, that have to do with recurring events as they are mentioned in the Quran. The unique events in categories 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be treated together in a third part. So all that defies, all that does not fit into common natural events will be dealt together later, since they all pertain to miracles. And for the purpose of this section, I define miracles as being any events that defies the apparent laws of nature or common logic. So here I'll be discussing category 1, like the usual event. So first section, between natural phenomena and divine will. So when trying to make sense of the world, one is often confronted with interpreting the different life's events, either as a pure physical and social phenomena or as pure divine interventions. My goal in this section is to show that this dichotomy has no justification. On the contrary, the text, the Quran, or even the Hadith, suggest a dual vision of the world. It's like the dual nature of light, a particle or a wave. So according to the text, the laws of nature are to be seen as divine expressions. From a historical perspective, with the Industrial Revolution and the advent of technology, many natural phenomena that were once solely described as emanating from God directly are now scientifically explained and even controlled, like lightning. Lightning was God's fury. Now you understand it as an electrostatic phenomena, and you can even control it. So for example, rain can be seeded in the clouds with silver iodines. You have a company, American company called Weather Modification Incorporated, for instance, that has been offering services, so controlling the weather since the 60s. So this artificial nucleation technique is used in major cities during winter time to prevent like city centers of being blocked by excessive snowfalls, for example. Or it's also used during national celebration and opening ceremonies, like the Olympic Games, to ensure beautiful sunny days. Regarding agriculture, while people used to rely on God's favor for the harvest, today you rely on hormonal treatments and irrigation methods. And with these methods, you can even transform sterile lands like desert into arable and productive fields. So furthermore, using our knowledge of genetics, seeds can be modified so that the plant produced is sterile, then forcing the farmer to buy new seed every year. Appropriating through science what was exclusively attributed to God may suggest that science encroaches on the divine by restricting God's realm of action up to the point of even replacing him. It is indeed easy to assign God to everything that you don't understand, that you cannot explain otherwise. But why not seeing natural phenomena and physical laws and even human actions themselves as an expression of divine will? The Quran explicitly mentions that God acts through humans. So in the Quran, Allah tells you that He will test you through others. Such verse illustrate how Allah will enact, how Allah's will is enacted through humans. For example, when He says, you throw the sand, but it's not you who threw the sand to the enemy, it's Allah who threw it. God even takes ownership of human undertakings and works. For example, God said that He created the sheep and put them at our service. But we know well that the boat does not go through the sea by itself. It needs first engineering to build it, and then you need a machinist to make the engine works. You need a captain to control, to direct it, to maneuver the boat. So you need the whole team, specialized team, and Allah still takes ownership. He says He is the one who makes the boat go through the sea. So you have to understand by that Allah works through material object and humans as well. So the contemporaries of the Prophet ﷺ already knew that the design of a ship requires engineering and qualified manpower to transform and assemble all its parts. Similarly, the ship's command requires a trained crew and technician capable of bearing the various damages. The hand of man in this type of project is obvious, although God designates Himself as the sole guarantor of its creation and functioning. Similarly, when describing the garden in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah says that He is the one who has planted the vineyards, palms, and other crops, and set up a river in the middle for irrigation. However, such agricultural marvels, which was the pride of its owner, to the point where the owner even denies at the end Allah's involvement in it, must have required constant maintenance. All these examples show that the physical and divine explanation of a phenomena simply correspond to two sides of the same coin. To give you an anecdote, I remember during my stay in the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, EPFL. So I had a colleague, we were doing an experiment in the lab, a spectroscopic experiment where we were superimposing different pulses of light. And when two light pulses coincide, temporally and spatially, they interfere, and you can see interference pattern. So when we saw that interference pattern, like you just tweak some mirrors, tweak some components, and you see the interference pattern appearing, he exclaimed like, "Ah, that's God." And I was like, "No, that's light." I naively responded that no, it's only light. He was able to see God through the physical phenomena, and I was limited by my material understanding of it. SubhanAllah. May Allah forgive me, and may Allah grant him the best of both worlds. So to see God, to be able to realize God all around me and within me, is to realize that the divine is expressed through each object and even actions, human actions. وجزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.